So I think my day of calmness today, the way my body feels almost like I've had a bit of weed, is to do with the fact that yesterday I managed to have a day for the first time in a very long time where I didn't engage with anybody for quite some hours. I'm looking a bit scruffy. I'm always seems to be looking a bit scruffy in these rambles, but um, sometimes the moment just takes me, and I'm out walking the dog, so to say. Dog's walking me. And I woke up feeling, although my head is still full of the noises from the moment I wake up, I don't know when that ever is going to stop. I've still woke up feeling slightly calm and just a bit chilled and got a lot going on. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, obviously we're here. I mean, look at this. I live in a beautiful place. I am truly grateful for where I live now as opposed to where I used to live. And I wondered if it was, this is a sort of one of the ideal autumn mornings. It's peaceful, serene. It just feels like a really calm day. Water is flat calm, as you can see over there. There's slight wisp of a breeze. You can smell autumn. Autumn's a good season for me. I feel it's one of those seasons where everything's sort of dying back, and rather than looking at it as a sad season, which I know some people do, they don't like autumn, they prefer spring because of the birth of everything. I prefer most seasons. Autumn with the colours, and you know that winter's coming, and you know it's time to hunker down. But ultimately, it's inevitable that everything's got to die. That dies in autumn, so that feeds my brain. Anyway, I am going off on a tangent, and I sort of was as I've walked down the beach to the turning point. I've thought about why am I feeling like this today? So what is it? Because I need to go over how my brain works. Obviously, as I've mentioned previously, I have a traumatized neurodivergent brain, and it's a tricky bugger to figure out. And I know some people will say, but why do you have to figure it out? Well, why do you need a label? That's thoughts of people. Well, one, to those people that talk about labels, is we're all labeled. You're labeled because of your gender, you're labeled because of your sexuality, you're labeled because of your age, you're labeled because of your weight, you're labeled because of what you do for a living. Everybody's got a label of some form or another. Why do I need to know what's going on? Because when we know what's going on, and well, I do, and I think most people could take this, is we can then figure out how best to make sure we don't put ourselves into situations that we don't want to deal with because we can't deal with them. And it's not because we're lazy or because we're avoidant, or it's because we just can't process them. So that's why I go and try to figure out my brain. The reason for today's ramble is I was figuring out, why am I so serene today? Yesterday, barring seeing my fiance in the morning before he left to go to his mum's with his grandson, and seeing him when he came back, the small dog walk, I had the day to myself. Yes, I was working all day. I was gardening and doing podcasts and doing my business, doing consulting, all the adverts and stuff. But I still had the day to myself. Yeah. I think that the traumatized brain, so like the traumatized part of my brain seeks out companionship because I didn't have such a great childhood. Now that I'm an adult, still seeking friendships and relationships, and like I used to do when I was younger, and I had thousands of friends and I was always around people all the time, constantly. And if I weren't around them, I would go finding them, generally in the pub or a nightclub or a rave somewhere, just to be surrounded by people so I could have hugs and contacts and discussions and etc. My neurodivergent brain is the devil in this occasion. Whereas last time we talked about the devil being the traumatized brain, stopping me from achieving. Whereas obviously the neurodivergent brain is the brain that struggles with social situations and conversations and friendships and relationships and all the dynamics. And I think I've managed to cope with that until a couple of years ago. Well, probably actually till just shortly after meeting my ex-husband, because I drank an awful lot, smoked an awful lot of cannabis, and I took drugs when I went out, recreational drugs, ecstasy, And that made engaging with people, social events, having friendships just more acceptable and more easy for me. And I know I can't live as a hermit just yet. Watch this space going forward, because I would love to live out in the middle of nowhere and not have to deal with humans unless I went to find them. But not because I don't like humans, because there's a lot of humans I do like, but I find the relationship dynamics really difficult to sort of process properly, and it stresses me out. And so I think my day of calmness today, the way my body feels almost like I've had a bit of weed, is to do with the fact that yesterday I managed to have a day for the first time in a very long time where I didn't engage with anybody for quite some hours. And it meant that I could somehow recharge my cells and my senses. So this time, neurodivergency is the devil, and it means I can look back on my life and go, right, okay, well, traumatized brain, the abandonment issues, the friendship bullying, the abuse, which then makes me want to have people so I don't feel lonely and I don't feel like it was pointless, is the one that draws me to be able to cope with engaging with public in my job or just relationships in general. But the neurodivergency is the part that says, no, 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 you're not doing this, not without drugs and drink. And if you're going to do it without drugs and drink, I'm going to make it really hard for you. So then I do need to check out. And it makes sense now when I've had friendships in the past of people I know, and they've said, I used to go away on my own, maybe without my husband or my wife or partner, or go away and I'd just get a cottage on my own for a couple of days, nothing else. And I get that now. And it also makes me realise and remember back when I was a kid, like so school age, I loved being on my own. I wasn't allowed to be on my own because in those days, if you were alone, you were just bullied even more. So forced into friendships that you just didn't want. But I also loved nothing better than going out on my own, getting on my bike or walking out with the dog I had at the time. Just me and the world. But social constraints and societal norms make it that you can't do that without being labelled as somebody weird. So there's another lesson I've learned today about how my brain ticks over. And I suspect there'll be lots and lots of other people, because I'm not unique. Yeah. Not one in a million, all that rubbish. I am just like millions and millions of other people trying to get from birth to death and in between, make it work for us. And this is what these are for. And this is for me to sort of work out. And my therapist will be delighted that I'm now doing these, because I'm meeting this tomorrow and we can have a good old gas about what my discoveries of this traumatized neurodivergent brain has been over the last few weeks. Tune in for another one of these rambles at some point, maybe in a better setup and it's not all wiggly jiggly like that, because I'm walking the dog on a really bouldery, rubbly beach. Have a great day, people. Ta-da.